The SCP-2100 was first conceptualized and developed for terrestrial signal acquisition applications. So in that application, you would take an 8VSB signal, for example, or maybe a DVB-T signal. You'd run that in RF into the back of the SCP-2100, and from there you could either transcode it or just use it as a strict gateway, and then send that out over any of your internet delivery protocols, whichever you prefer, whether that's SRT, RIST, Zixi, whatever, and send that off over the internet.
Yeah, and the DMG 7000 has somewhat complemented some of those applications where the SCP was doing a lot of that. Like you said, it's the signal collection platform, but what we've seen sometimes where customers already have those signals out in the field or are ahead end trying to collect a lot of those different kinds of field-based or out in the field-based content streams, whether they're any of the protocols that Jason was saying. And so between being like out in the field with the SCP and then being back at the head end with the DMG 7000, we've noticed a lot of synergy and kind of complements of from product to product. One of the other ones I wanted to highlight too is also the MRD 7000 as well.
Sure.
The front end of the MRD 7000 is our software-based receiver decoder. For those of you that don't know, actually has all of those protocols on the front end as well. So if it's MPEG over IP or Zixi or SRT or RIST or HLS, you name it, we have a front end on the MRD 7000 so that we can actually receive those signals from, say, an SCP out in the field and then do a decode in a multi-channel software-based platform. So not only the digital turnaround part of it, like doing the protocol translation, but also decoding back to SDI or 2110 or whatever it is.
Yeah, so depending on your workflow and your head end there, whether you need to get that back to your traditional multicast workflow or you need to get that back down to baseband to do re-encode or add insertion or whatever, we got you covered in all those applications. So one of the other applications I wanted to talk about is like a sporting event, for example. Whether that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional sporting event. A lot of the times it won't be, actually. It may be a high school basketball game or volleyball game or whatever.
Yep.
And in the current state of things, as we know, a lot of these will be happening more remote or televised or streamed. So in those applications, it's literally as simple as taking a camera at the event there, plugging the output of that camera, likely HDMI, plug that into the SCP, and then again transport that over the internet back to your cable head end or your TV studio or remote news truck or whatever, right? And then pick that back up again with the DMG 7000 or MRD 7000.
Yep. And we've also seen this with not only like local sporting events. I think people think like Little League or something like that. Maybe go-kart racing, like Little League go-kart racing, something like that. But also esports for like video games and things like that. We've seen it where hook up an HDMI cable to an SCP and backhaul that directly to wherever it needs to go in a variety of different protocols.
Yeah, and then those players can be at home on their own computers and all competing against one another and be televised from a central studio there. So.
And it's easy with the plug and play aspect of the SCP too. All they got to do is literally plug it into their internet connection and plug it into their HDMI on their computer and give it some power, and they're pretty much off and running. So it's a nice plug-and-play setup.
Yep, super easy. One of the more interesting applications I wanted to highlight that we ran across here a few weeks ago is actually a remote monitoring application. So typically you have a bunch of personnel inside of your NOC. They're flipping through channels, making sure all the channels are good all the time. Well, since a lot of customers can't actually be in their head ends right now, many of them are working remotely. One of the ideas we had is basically take a number of these SCPs, put them in the head end, and hook them up to your traditional SDI router. Then the remote monitor, or the users, I guess, or I can't think of the right name for them, but the people that are doing the monitoring can...
The eyes on the wall.
Yeah, yeah, they can VPN back into the head end, change the source on the SCP by just changing the output of the SDI router. And then from there, it's going out over the internet, and they're receiving it and decoding it via VLC right on their computer at their home there. So pretty unique application there where you're just running it to a PC and watching the video, basically consuming the content like an end user, but for a different application there. So.
Yep. We've even seen that with the DMG 7000 as well. That was a little unique with the SCP just because of the SDI switching, but this could easily be done with the DMG 7000 as well with that. Ingesting a lot of the the mosaic MPEG over IP mosaics that come from a lot of the bigger remote monitoring wall type systems, they can actually ingest that MPEG over IP stream, turn it over to like a Zixi or an SRT or something like that, and you could have the entire multi-view as well, in addition to tuning to individual channels like that, like Jason was saying with the ICP. So it's kind of a combination of products, all similar APIs, by the way. All of these run with the Sencore Common Services Platform, is like we call it in our in-house conversations, but this gives us the ability to host a really familiar web interface across all the products, and as well as host everything like SNMP traps, SNMP control and monitoring, as well as REST API for more, I guess, modern types of orchestration and automation systems and things like that.
Absolutely. So we just wanted to show you those few applications, highlight those, give you some ideas. Obviously, there's tons more applications out there, and it's you, the customers, that are coming up with these applications and allowing us to develop these features to better meet your needs. So if you have any questions on any of these products, either head on over to our website at sencore.com or talk to your account manager for more details and pricing. Thanks.
Thanks.